Commissioner Garrison, I had you down again. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. Commissioner Garrison.
Sorry. Will there be on-site management, and will there be a fee for parking?
These are questions better answered by the developer, I believe.
Could you please repeat the question?
Will there be on-site management, and will there be a fee for parking for the residents?
There will be professional on-site management, which will do, as they've done on our other projects, a good job of managing the number of residents per unit. The management of allocated parking spaces will be marked, and there will be no charge for parking.
For reference, page 235 of 329 has the conditions of approval, which does not allow charging additional fees for parking.
Commissioner Looney?
I have a question for Commissioner Bell. Could you summarize again what you had mentioned about the Lucy documents and the city guidelines?
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Bell. We are.
Just to clarify, the basis of the decision that I'm tending toward right now would be several of the policy lines that were actually laid out by the advocacy group and summarized nicely here. Now, these are more general policies, and these are not specific conditions. I think the easy route in this is to look at the numbers and see that they line up. And I have no question at all that the city has done their job and has looked through the actual the parking, the actual number of units, the size of the buildings, the setbacks, and has been more than thorough in finding that those match the criteria. The problem I have specifically is with some of the general policies. Now, those general policies, sometimes they can appear less than objective, but I think that you have to look at these and actually take these into account when making a decision like this. So, specifically, the list on Breeze Hill Apartments, the document provided by Citizens for a Better Vista? Is that what it is? Vistans for a Livable Community. Thank you. The site and building design reflect the neighborhood characteristics, Policy 2.2. Policy 2.5, minimizing impacts on adjacent residential development that is of lower density. There was one on parking, and 3.4, require adequate off-street parking for all residential development. Now, we have codes and standards in place that more clearly define those policies. I understand that, but my issue is that there is evidence that's been presented in the slideshow and by testimony that those codes and policies don't always fit every neighborhood and don't always work. So my decision to actually vote against this in some form or other would be based on those criteria.
So how are those resolved, or how are those defined?
Well, which way, defined or resolved? You're asking for more specifics on why I'm making that decision?
No. It's just who clarifies those points in comparison to the city regs?
I don't have that ability. There's no good answer to that.
Okay.
And I think that's where we lie as the City Planning Commission. It's the city's job to go through and line up the actual definitions of the codes and line them up with the proposals from the builder, and then the gray areas, such as these, come to us. And so my call on this would be that I don't think this lines up. And that's based on photographs, based on testimony, things like that.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Yeah, and then can I just add something to that? The second half of the code section that I didn't address is there's two requirements here. One, that if we're going to disapprove it, I have to show that it doesn't line up with the policies. And so I believe I've set the groundwork for that. And again, people are going to disagree. I may not be right, but then this is my judgment call on this. The second half of that is that there's no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate or avoid the impact that I just identified in that first section, other than disapproval or approval and conditions. My take on that is disapproval, simply because there's so many variables here that I don't have the ability, and there's been several design review processes. This has already gone through several forms. So my take on this is that disapproval is the option, that we can't go through and actually revise this. I'm absolutely open to hearing alternatives to that. If someone has a way, and we've already heard some smaller pieces, but to address the actual issues that were shown on the slides and the testimony of the people that lines up within these policies, I would be open to hearing that.
Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you, Chairman. So I appreciate all the public testimony, and obviously these traffic and parking issues are very serious to all these residences, or they wouldn't be out here spending their evenings, hours on end, time coordinating. So the evidence is the people putting in their time and giving these testimonies versus these reports. And this is real world, we see the real world more so in these testimonies than we do in a report done by a consultant that suggests something. But so I'm sidetracked, but that I just want the public to know that the commissioners, you know, we live here too, and we do appreciate the time that you take out of your day to be here. But what I initially wanted to talk about was just the parking management plan, which comes up on these multi-family projects, and Avalon does not have a parking management plan. Is that correct?
Oh, they do have a parking
They
management
do? Okay. Well, okay, so I have friends that live at Avalon that they don't park in their garage, and they report as they drive up and down the driveways, the garages are open and they're not being used for cars. And so there's this thing out there that's always kind of bugged me a little bit, and it's this parking management plan that gets submitted and approved by the staff. And I don't really know what it is. I don't really know what the teeth are in it. And there's some language on page 235, and it's under number 11, where it says parking spaces may be assigned to individual units or provided as open guest spaces. And then it goes on to talk about that we can't charge that they can't charge fees for that. But I would like to find a way in this project and others to come up with something more specific as a condition or recommendation regarding parking along the lines of parking spaces shall be assigned to individual units and as open space guest spaces, and then with further detail on a range of percentage of how many of those spaces are being conditioned to be assigned to the residents, and how many of those spaces are not, so that if there's some unknown enforcement mechanism that it can be visually done, whether it's by a parking sticker, only a vehicle with a parking sticker can park in this numbered space. I don't know what it is, but I'm looking for more detail and more ways to enforce these management plans. You know, I know the city's not in the business of being enforcing parking, and I know if there's legal parking on the street, there's legal parking on the street. But I just want to find a way to head in that direction somehow, where, you know, we just say we're going to do a parking management plan, and that takes care of any issues. And so they have 5 cars, that people that live in that 2-bedroom unit, they have 4 cars, And the parking management plan said that they could have 2, but they're still parking 4 there, and there's nothing we can do about it. Project's done. So that was my sidetrack issue about the parking management plan. It's not specific to this project. It's for all the multifamilies.
Commissioner Looney.
Well, along those same lines, I think we've got reality of how we all live, whether you're in Shadow Ridge or whether you're off of Melrose, even in residential streets. You've got one single-family home, and you've got average 3 to 4 vehicles, and that's not counting a boat or an RV. And so they're going to be parking on the street. So we've got reality versus policy. So how do we blend those two together?
You finally get it!
Because
Come on.
city guidelines say that we have to do that. The developer coming in, I mean, when I do my work, that's the first place I go. I go to the county or I go to the city. What are the guidelines? What can I build? What are my setbacks? What are the easements?
What are the requirements?
The developer comes in and staff, as they should, give them the policies and the guidelines to design by. But it doesn't work. And so as a commission, as a board of planning commissioners, how do we respond to an applicant? How do we respond to a resident that's been there? And like you, I don't know, what can we do? What's the answers to that? We can only say no, I think, so many times before we get into legal issues. At the same time, we've got months and months and months that I've heard residents that come and say it doesn't work. We've got more people living in each living unit, and they're driving cars, and there's no place to park other than on the street. So I don't know the solution.